So now that we've talked about the end of World War I and the Russian Revolution, let's get to after the Treaty of Versailles, and we know it punished Germany. But we're going to talk about between the war period here and some of the problems that the Treaty of Versailles and just the way, problems between the wars in general that are going to lead to the ability of people like Stalin and the USSR and Italy and Mussolini and Italy and Hitler and Germany are going to be able to rise up and take over. So during the 1920s, several factors would lead to the eventual worldwide depression of the 30s. Overproduction of stuff, and things were just sitting on shelves because too much was being produced. A lot of tariffs trying to keep prices high. War debt from World War One. We talked about how Germany's currency is going to be worth nothing, and speculation in the stock market. Basically, people investing money that they really didn't have through bank loans and things like that. So, supply side economics, are basically capitalism that we've talked about, held that economic growth was a result of keeping production costs low and also prices low. This was creating an environment where more goods were bought, more workers needed, more employed. However, markets became too saturated because all countries, not all countries, but most countries in Europe now and the United States are very industrialized and they're all just producing this stuff. And you see this guy stressed out over here with all the stuff. They need people to buy it. And while that was the goal of imperialism, they were still producing far more than what they could sell. So this resulted in, like I said, overproduction. When you have too much stuff and factories don't need to make things anymore, they lay people off, which leads to unemployment. People have less money to buy things, and it's just a big cycle. And eventually led to businesses and banks failing and running out of money. To make matters worse, failing national economies began to resort to tariffs to attempt to prevent unemployment in their own countries. However, it didn't help because all of these countries are already so connected. And when every country puts up a tariff, you're basically, just stopping trade. So, additionally, usual trade between Europeans has been interrupted by the war, and reparations, remember, money for war damages, made it difficult for Germany and Austria to recover. Not only had the traditional trade patterns between Germany, France, and Britain ended, but now Germany could not rebuild its industry or buy from anyone. Germany was broke. Even with these factors harming European economies, the spark that led to all out depression, I'm sure we've heard about this before, was the US stock market crash on Black Tuesday in 1929. Americans had been taking loans from banks to invest in stocks that had just been going up and up during the roaring 20s and repaying their loans with the profits that they made. However, when stock prices just became so inflated and they weren't actually worth that much, people stopped buying, the whole system collapsed, and people were unable to pay their loans back to the bank because their stocks lost money. So now they're in debt to the bank, they're unable to pay it, the bank's not getting any money, and then the banks are forced to close. This in turn stopped any help that Germany was getting from the United States. So then Germany couldn't make its payments from Britain and France, and caused even more failure. So it's because of the globalized world that it's starting to live in and everything connected. A depression in one area is very easy to spread to another idea. So enter this guy, John Keynesian economics. He's going to come up with the idea that in order to get a country out of depression, a government needed to spend money. So the primary problem after these events was unemployment. People had no incomes to spend. So Keynes is going to say that during times of unemployment, the government needed to increase demand, by themselves. You could do this by public work projects, creating, the highway system, building bridges, stadiums, getting people to work and the government paying for it so they had money to buy things. And in turn, hopefully, businesses would rehire people and that sort of thing. So his major idea was that the government needed to get involved and spend lots of money in order to get the economy going again. There's another guy by the name of Hayek who was the exact opposite of this, who basically believed no, you have to let like the cycle of the economy go through its natural stages. But Keynesian economics is going to be the popular one, and a lot of countries are going to adopt this policy. During the 1930s, many governments followed this to begin increasing public spending, developing infrastructure, and building monuments and stadiums to give people jobs. And then they have jobs, they have money, hopefully they're buying things, which leads to more jobs being created in factories. So this new economic theory would become the basis for Western economies, and it still kind of is today, starting with the US, Britain, and Nazi Germany, and like I said, remains common today. So in France, calls for reform, aid, and protections for workers was more important than applying these new ideas. So France is going to have a short run with socialism here. A group called the French Popular Front won support of voters by promising wage and benefit increases for workers. A socialist group, remember, focused on workers' rights. The Popular Front provided 2 week paid vacations, increased wages by 48%, and reduced the work week to 40 hours. But problems only get worse because all of those things cost money, which none of these countries had a lot of. But you'll notice 2 week paid vacation, 40-hour work week. Like these are things that are still standard in our Western society today. Hopefully, we're getting more than 2 weeks paid vacation, but I know a lot of people that's all they get. Prices rose drastically and the production slowed due to only a 40-hour work week, and the Popular Front is going to lose support because while things sound great, oh, we get this, we get that, things cost money and have other ripple effects on the economy. While France would be able to keep its democratic government, um, Germany, Spain, Poland, Hungary, Romania are all going to turn into dictatorships. All of these different countries, especially we're going to look at Germany, especially because of these poor economic conditions, people are looking for a leader that can get the country back on track and restore it to what it was prior to World War I and improve the conditions. And some people are willing to subjugate entire groups of people in order to do that. In Germany, the poor economic conditions by the Treaty of Versailles left the government weak and unable to prop itself up. It was remember the name for the German government in Germany after World War I was called the Weimar Republic, was campaigned against by Adolf Hitler as citizens sought a strong-willed and determined leader. After a series of purges and very complicated political maneuvers, he's going to be able to take complete control of Germany when he's made chancellor in 1933. They wasted no time in following that Keynesian economic where they created if you've ever heard of the Autobahn before, it's a highway, a very famous highway in Germany that Hitler spent a lot of money developing. Um, they started bringing a lot of people back into the military. Again, the government paying for things to get people working, and in Germany, he was very successful in doing it. So people always ask me, how was someone like Hitler able to rise to power? Well, it wasn't overnight, but he took advantage of economic problems in Germany and said, if you follow me, I will give you a job. I will allow you to put food on the table for your family. And he was able to stimulate the economy enough to where Germans started feeling that nationalistic pride again. But as we know, very anti-Semitic, wants revenge for World War I, and he's going to take those ideas and apply them and which leads to the tragedies of World War II and the Holocaust. So hopefully this has been helpful of realizing where we are from the end of World War I with the Russian Revolution and some of the major things that are happening between the wars, which is going to, like we said, lead to the rise of these dictators, especially the most famous ones, Stalin, Mussolini, and Hitler. Again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I will see you tomorrow.